Today, I have an incredible guest and friend. Her name is Mary Marantz. She is the incredible host of a very popular podcast called The Mary Marantz Show. She is an author of three incredible books. I love her writing style. It just like draws you in to the setting, to the place, to the emotion. And so I'm really excited to talk about her third book, as well as just talk about what it looks like to overcome achieving. She's like a known overachiever. She talks about it all the time and how she really has learned to find her identity not in what she does, but who she is. So, welcome to the show, Mary Marantz.
Mm.
Oh, I'm so excited to
Oh
chat. I
gosh.
feel like every time I get the opportunity to talk to you, it's just a lot of fun. And I feel like we just have a kindred spirit.
Yeah, I 100% with that. The first time we met, I think the first time we met was when you came on my show. Your first book was coming out, and I just felt like we had been friends forever. We have some similarities in our childhoods growing up, some crossover there, and just I think kindred spirits are a really great way to put it. It's just like it feels like safe and it feels like home when I'm with you. So I love you, and I'm so thankful I get to hang out with you today.
Me too. I'm so excited. I'm very excited to learn more about your third book because I
Yeah,
had read your other ones, and I love your writing. It's just so beautiful. It's like poetic. I can put
thank
myself
you.
in your shoes and really like experience what you experience. So I really love your writing. Can you tell us a little bit about what this new book is going to entail and what we'll
Yeah.
get from it?
Ye- Yeah, I'm gonna pull it up over here. We got one right in the room with us, if you can believe that. So for anybody watching on
Nice.
YouTube, anybody watching on video, look at that shiny compass right there on
So
the cover.
pretty.
It is called Underestimated. And they say you write the book that you need. And I feel like I've spent 45 years preparing to write this book. For everybody who's kind of playing catch up, I sort of hinted at our childhoods. I grew up in a single wide trailer in very rural West Virginia on the top of a mountain. My dad's a logger. His dad was a logger, 8 generations deep of loggers. When I say single wide trailer, I mean that in the fullest extent of the word. Like whatever picture you have in your head of a dilapidated West Virginia trailer, that would be it. If you're watching and you're a visual person, you can go to thebookdirt.com, which is my first book, and the trailer on the cover of that book is the actual trailer I grew up in. And then you fast forward a little bit in my story, and I end up at Yale for law school. And I was telling Des before we hopped on, I'm not wearing this hat because I'm just like so super proud of that. Although I am, it's just because like we're over here in a week from launching a book, and so this is just dirty hair, hat hair kind of day. But yeah, Yale for law school is quite the jump from a single wide trailer, and I think a lot of people would hear a story like that, and people have even asked me, and going around and talking about this book, like, was that when you stopped underestimating yourself? And I just laugh out loud because no, it was not by a long shot. You would think that if there was going to be a moment of arrival where I felt like, okay, I can relax now, I can feel like I've made it, that would be it. I joke that that's getting into Yale is sort of like getting one of Willy Wonka's golden tickets. That's how hard and how rare it is. But the truth is, Des, it kicked off 20 plus more years of underestimating myself and second guessing myself and trying to earn my worth, achieve my worth. And when I started writing this book, I will tell you just one more thing is I thought it was going to be a book 100% about when other people overlook us and invite us, miss the magic we have inside. And
Hmm.
this book has opinions. A book will tell you what it wants to be, and it was like, "It's gonna be 20% that, but it's gonna be
That's
80% when
funny.
you do it to yourself." And I was like, "Oh, that hurts." So right on the cover, it says, "Because the person counting you out the most just might be you." Yeah.
Totally. I love that though. And I love that. I love when books actually are what we are walking through because it's just that much more powerful for the reader to experience themselves. And again, you're being
Right.
raw and honest with your journey to that of underestimating. Did you feel that going to Yale and achieving actually enabled even more like needing to achieve you know what I mean, like how it's like a stepping stone to just that
Yeah.
need to do more, do more, see how far I can go.
Mhm.
And because maybe you did receive accolades and you received attention for how well you did. And so that kind of drove the identity of who you thought you needed to be.
There's actually a part in Dirt where I talk about, I felt like I was walking around at law school with this like hole in my heart that was like, a root canal the size of a chest wound. That's what it felt like. Every time the cold air would hit just right, it sent all my exposed roots screaming back into full life. And I was trying to like backfill that hole with gold stars and brand name labels. And there's this one part where I was like, I just became addicted to the sugary sweet high of getting everything I ever wanted. Like God was some sort of Pez dispenser, keep the candy coming, God. Who cares if my faith is anemic? Who cares if like I'm actually starving to death on the inside? Just keep it coming. And I say, like, little did I know it would be an extraction, not a filling that I would need the most later on in life, that I was going to have to, get rid of all these things and say, who is Mary without all this more?
Yeah, that's so good. And I mean, I loved your memoir and really understanding where you came from. So how does this book kind of morph into something new? Maybe much more advice given, or is it much more experience given?
Mm,
Are there tips to
right.
not underestimating ourselves? Or
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I've been kind of joking that Dirt and Underestimated very much feel like these sort of fraternal twin books, like they're bookends meant to go together. And if Dirt is sort of like the movie story version of my life, then I've been joking that Underestimated is like the textbook, where I'm like, okay, this is the story of how we are and how we got here. This Underestimated is the why are we the way we are? Deep dive. And so for everybody playing catch up at home who's listening, the whole book is premised on the idea that fear fear is a really boring liar. That the same boring scripts it uses on me, the same boring masks that it puts on are actually the same ones it uses on you and vice versa and everybody listening. That fear is not tethered to muse or melody or the original force of all creation, and so it must spend its whole life attacking those of us who do have those kind of gifts of creation inside us. And so, chapter by chapter, I'm going through each of those phases of fear. We have perfectionism, procrastination, people pleasing, imposter syndrome, overthinking, self sabotage, second guessing, even a fear of success. I have 14 of them in total, 14 chapters, and then each chapter has a bunch of smaller names of fear inside. And so it does deep dives on like the science, how our brains work. It goes into like psychology. There's a lot of really poetic, very metaphorical imagery that I use to represent the different faces of fear, because we learned very early on that people learn and recall best from very visual metaphor. And so the quicker that I can get somebody to be able to catch fear in the act, to go, oh, this is just the Edward Scissorhands problem from chapter 4, second guessing is a missing handbook. We feel like we're walking around in the world without all the pertinent parts, like Edward Scissorhands dropped down in the middle of some pastel suburban hell, where when we break the rules because we do not know the rules, we are the ones who die death by 1,000 cuts. So now it's one thing for me to go, oh, you second guess yourself because you feel like you didn't get all the education and information you needed when you were little. Okay. Or you're right in the middle of doing that and you're like, Edward Scissorhands problem. I've seen this before. I know this before. And the faster we can name that fear, it's like all of its power just whooshes right out of the room.
right, it's so good. Like the more you're aware of, I guess, even like the way you tick, the wounds, the all of that, it really does give you the power to overcome those things. I think this is so awesome. It's so great. And I actually want to go back because I still am, I love that you were saying that you originally thought that this book was going to be written about other people not seeing your worth and feeling misunderstood and overlooked and underestimated. And all of those words just speak to even how I have felt my whole entire life. But even in my own journey, it's like the more I can stop looking at myself and, or I'm sorry, start looking at like, woe is me and like, just other
Yeah.
people don't get me. It's like, well, what is it about me that is making me feel this way? Because so often our perspective is our truth, but it's not
Yeah.
necessarily the truth. And so, how did that impact you while you were writing it?
Mm. It's so interesting, when you're writing, like, don't write a book unless you want to have life make you live out the message. When I was doing Slow Growth Equals Strong Roots, this is my second book. It was like, okay, we're going to grow nice and slow for this one. And so with Underestimated, I know that feeling so well of like walking into any room and expecting to be rejected, expecting to be overlooked, expecting, like let's just like, let's call it what it is. For me, there is for sure something about my presence. I think it's being an introvert, having a quieter voice, not being the one shouting in the center of attention saying, look at me, that most of my interactions go like this. I meet somebody for the first time, unless they are also kind of a hard story person, like the instant connection we had. Usually it's more like they just sort of look right through me, like, oh yeah, yeah, like where are the cool kids? Where do I need to be? And then you add in the variable of time. And then suddenly it's like they read a book of mine or they hear me speak somewhere. They're like, "Oh, wait, like what? Like what? You are an author? Like I didn't even know." Whatever it is. And even as I'm saying that, what I'm hearing and like having to catch myself do is to not feel like that, like, "Oh yeah, you should have like, paid attention to me because of X, Y, and Z." Instead of just like, "You should have paid attention to me because we were two humans." And like the
Yeah.
light in me recognizes the light in you, that kind of feeling. So I know that feeling so well, and I'm going to be honest with you, this being your show and your audience, I bet there's a lot of people listening who are like, wait, 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 Desiree, say more. Like we want to know. I want to know. Like when you say that feeling of like I felt that way my whole life, like just tell us a little bit more about that. I know like it's your show and I'm such a podcast host. I'm like, tell us
Here.
more about that.
No, that's
But
what I love about
I'm like,
conversations and like,
ooh,
yeah, I mean, I love it. I want it to be more like coffee chat where you're just like, we all can relate in
yeah.
certain things. But yeah, I mean, it's just always feeling overlooked. And it's because I have the same personality as you. I mean, even when you posted something on social media
Mm,
about, I think you took a test or something, I don't know. I was like, oh my gosh,
yeah.
identical.
INFJs.
So super
Yeah.
introverted. Yeah.
Mm,
Super introverted, reserved. I will answer your questions, but I'm not as like, I guess, I'm not going to just share and spill everything just for the need
mm,
to. And so growing
yeah.
up, I think, well, this is like a whole other story with like my voice and the just kind of like the enemy not wanting me to use my voice. And so that it just from a very young age it made me feel like my opinion doesn't matter, what I think doesn't matter, my voice doesn't matter. I don't know how to share or have an opinion or be the center of attention. Like all of that stuff made me so nervous. I didn't even like if small group like in a small group if like I
Mm,
was the only one talking, I'd be so uncomfortable that I would just start to
yeah.
like fade out my what I was saying and I would just be done.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah, like trail
it's just
off. Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, the trail off, just because I'm like, okay, I don't think anyone cares and I feel uncomfortable, so I'm gonna sign off, you know?
Mm,
And so
yeah.
it's just really been interesting the work that I've had to do in order to use my voice, be confident in it, and know
Yeah.
that that I'm actually standing in the way of what God wants to do in and through me because
Mm,
of what I think. But we are just a vessel. And once we can get out of our own way, there's so much more that we can do, so much more of our own story that we can impact others with. And it's just been really enlightening to see it that way. But in a micro scale of this personality, of even with my like husband and communication has been very hard my whole life. And I've had to come to learn like people can't read my mind. And so I
yeah.
can't
Right.
assume I can't assume someone doesn't like me because they're just seem uninterested. Like I can be very sensitive in people's reactions, but it's like, that's not what they intended.
Mm,
Whereas, you know what I mean? I've had to be a little bit more reflective in that and be like, that's not what they intended type thing. You know what I mean?
yeah. Yeah, and I love so much what you said there about, like, feeling like your voice doesn't matter, because literally this whole book, the whole idea for the book kicked off, I was, I'm an author, but I also coach people who want to write books or want to speak from the stage, whatever. And I was, I just had like a long string of coaching calls with my clients where it was like eerie how similar they were putting voice to like what they were afraid of, but it was like copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste. And I found that fear was coming after me with those same kinds of copy and paste lies. And so I got on my phone and I just like didn't even introduce it. I just started rattling off the fears I was hearing from them. It's all been done. It's all been done better.
Mm,
It's all been done by somebody the world actually cares about. I can't start until it's perfect. I can't start until I am perfect. What if I start and the critics come? So on and so on and so on. But one of the most important
perfect.
ones that comes up is, what if my voice doesn't matter? What if I don't really matter? What if it's already too late? And I wrote in the book, chapter 2. So, like I said, each chapter is a different face of fear. Chapter 2 kind of sets up the character of fear before we even really deep dive in. And one of the things I said is that, drop a pin. Fear is going to attack you at these precise GPS coordinates. It is the crosshair intersection
Oh my-
where your gifts meet your story. And so if you have the gift of
Yes.
words, if you have the ability to change lives with words, it's going to tell you your voice doesn't matter. And it's going to tell you that your story disqualifies you before you've even begun. If you are somebody who feels called to serve people, to really be a helper to people, fear is going to tell you that it's selfish of you to start, that you've always been so selfish, and that your selfish track record in your story disqualifies you. And so what I hear when you say, I feel like my voice has never mattered, is, wow, Des must really have a huge gift at words. Because fear would not
That's
attack you
funny.
like that in that place if you didn't.
Totally. And it's crazy when you can realize that. I love everything you just said, by the way. It's like so like powerful for I know those listening, but even for myself. But yeah, it's been so interesting because I think when I could start to feel like, wow, like I got the Lord is calling me to like be out there. It's nerve-wracking, so nerve-wracking. So
Mhm.
even the starting the podcast in the beginning was even hard for me. But I knew that I was taking baby steps to overcome these fears. And so even with, this YouTube, it's like I was procrastinating. So I got to read the book and the chapter on procrastination because I was
Yes.
procrastinating, and of course, I have a new baby. I have, I homeschool. I'm so busy, so it's like, of course, I can just say all these things, but really deep down in my heart, they were just excuses because I could make
Mhm.
time. I can make time,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
I think for me, the lesson has been you have to push through the fear and when you're not start when it doesn't even look perfect. Like I told you, this is a background, like a filter, because
Yeah.
I was waiting till I could get the right equipment. I was waiting till I could actually like have a background, lights, I don't know. And then I was like, the Lord just kept putting on my heart to be like, you have to like no more messing around. Like you have to do this. And so it's been just wonderful to just start. And then it's so funny
Yeah.
because the moment I just started last week, and it was like the moment I started, it just broke off this like pressure
Yes.
that I
Yeah.
created.
Yeah.
I created this pressure. And then once I got the kinks out and felt a little more comfortable, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, why did I wait so long?
Yeah.
So funny.
I actually quote James Clear from Atomic Habits in the book, and he calls, specifically in reference to procrastination, which we do a deep dive on procrastination. Is chapter 8. Procrastination is a double-edged sword. But one of the things that we talk about, that we is me, myself, and I don't know why I always say we, but I do. We, me and the reader are going to talk about, is he calls it the action line. And it is this moment when future far off consequences of putting off the work we're supposed to do have finally become present day consequences. And, oh, wait a minute, we might actually have to forfeit the opportunity. Now it gets serious. And like I call that in the book the terror, which is like in this weird fight fire with fire, rubber, I'm rubber, you're glue kind of approach to fear. It's like ironically, the only thing that shakes me out of my procrastination fear that has me frozen is even more fear that I might actually mess it up this time, that I might lose the opportunity.
Totally.
And yeah, and so what you described there, he talks about that. He's like, it's really not the pain of doing, honestly, it's the pain of starting. And like that same thing you said, it's like almost like the scales fall away as soon as you start doing it, and you're like, why didn't I just do this to begin with? But very interestingly, in that chapter, I talk about something psychologists call upward counterfactuals versus downward counterfactuals, which is why procrastinators, myself included, never learn our lesson. So, an upward counterfactual says, hey, I turned this in at the last minute and it was actually really stressful and really frantic. And I very easily could have messed this up. I mean, I got a good grade this time, but like I very easily could have messed this up. Let me look at that and let me like learn from it so that I can go, hey, next time let's do this in a way where it doesn't feel so hair on fire. But what
Yeah,
procrastinators do,
that's
because
not
they
me.
procrastinate to avoid pain. So, doing the post-mortem there on like how it turned out is not what we want to do. So we're going to avoid that as well. The downward counterfactual is kind of, I call it like an exercise in at least like a silver linings playbook of, well, at least I did turn it in. At least I did get a good grade. At least I did pull it off at the last minute. And that actually becomes very reinforcing because the only thing we're learning is that it did work out. And
Oh
so
man,
I've
that's
had a very lifelong
whew,
relationship with procrastination for that very reason.
yeah. I mean, I would say I pride myself in being able to work
Yep.
well under pressure, but I always forget to mention that that pressure was my procrastination, and that's why I had to work really well under pressure. But it's
Yes.
funny because yeah, but because that's something I would like to break. It's something that I'm working on breaking. And I've learned that I think the anecdote for me personally, I don't know, is being consistent with things. Not just like being super consistent and making sure that I make time if I desire to, say for instance, like do a podcast, do it like it will be I'll be persistent because I can be very relaxed and it's easy for me to be like, oh, I'll get to it
Mhm.
tomorrow. And so trying to shift that mindset and make it more important, I think, than what I tend to do.
Yeah, 100%. Like that is probably my biggest I'm not even going to say the word struggle even though that's 100% what it is, but it's my next journey. The journey I'm on is becoming a consistent person. This is chapter 13. Distraction is a clock that's ticking, but it's really a chapter all about consistency and how it compounds over time and how it's actually really frustrated me for most of my life because the way the world works is that there are people out there who are like far less excellent, who maybe have far less, this is the extreme example, but I'll just rattle it off. Maybe far less integrity, far less originality, far less concern about whether their stuff actually helps people, but they show up consistently. And I have lived my whole life feeling really frustrated that excellence alone, excellence enough is not enough on its face to win. It feels like it should be the best book or the best teacher or the best speaker. But in reality, what the world actually, this is like Albert Einstein right here. He says, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. Most people know that quote is Albert Einstein. What they don't know is that he goes on to say, those who understand it earn it, those who don't pay it. And, that's of course true in our money and our, investments, our retirement accounts, whatever. But it's very, very true in how we show up every day to do the work we were put here to do. And unfortunately, people who just show up consistently will win every time over people who are just excellent alone. And I really have a hard time with that.
Yeah, that is speaking to me. I like that a lot. That is so good. Oh, it's like what I needed. And so, oh man, I can't wait to get my hands on your book, to just dive into it
Yeah.
more, especially because this is something that is very, it's something that is very, I guess, like heightened in this season for me to walk through, and
Mhm.
which I'm sure many others as well, because I think we're also realizing like, where's the time going? Like we don't like tomorrow isn't promised. So why do we wait so long and wait like you said, and then we end up missing it, or we end up
Mhm.
not. doing all of those things that are inside of us to create and to do. And so I just know it will be a blessing for so many people to get their hands on this. And I love your insight. I love your wisdom on all of this. It's so wonderful.
Thank you.
Are there any other books in the works too? I'm just
You know
curious.
what? I do know what number 4 is. I do know. I do know. It's I'm like, please don't make me live out that one too, but it's basically how to keep going when everything in you wants to quit. So that's going to be super fun to
That's
live out. Yeah, the how do we keep going when nothing is happening basically. Um but you
that,
know what's really
that's
interesting what you were
awesome.
just saying made me think of is there's this really beautiful quote by Oliver Wendell Holmes where and what he says is most people most people will go to their graves with the music still inside them unplayed. Meaning,
Mm,
for me, that's books and words. For other person, other people, it's
mhm,
speaking. For some people, it is a song. But when we look around in the world, when we look at our own families and our own friends, the reality is, I don't know, 90, 95, 99. I don't know the number, but it's really
mhm.
high percent of people
Okay.
will never get around to doing that thing. And so
Mhm.
we're out here, you and I think the people listening, I don't think they would be listening if that wasn't like where they were headed. We're out here in the arena. We're out here in the wilderness. We're out here, you know, wild animals running everywhere, like trying to figure out how to do the thing. And it feels terrifying and it feels lonely and it feels dangerous. There's a part in the book where I say, there it is. The ledge is long, lonely, dangerous work. It's putting your butt in the chair day after day for thankless hours, turn months, turn years, turning down the gold stars of people pleasing your way into other people's, priority lists to do work that you don't have anything to show for it right away. And only you have
Right.
the vision of where you're headed. That is long, lonely, dangerous work. And so it feels so terrifying because it is so terrifying. But at least we're not the 99.9% of people who are going to go to our
Mm.
grave with our music still inside us, you know?
Yeah, that's like I heard a quote similar to that in terms of something along those lines of like all of the books and the things that have been buried and will
Yeah.
never come, to fruition
Oh,
because um,
oh, that hurts my
they didn't
heart.
take the time or it does. I mean, and honestly, I can name I can probably name at least 10 people I've met in the last 5 years that have said I need to write a book. I feel like I need to start a podcast. I feel like I have this dream. I feel like I have that dream. And then I, see them again 2 years ago, like 2 years later or a year later. And it's the same thing. I have this book that I
Yeah.
really need to write. I have this podcast I really need to write. And I'm like, so do it. Like you got to step out
Yeah.
in faith and fear and just do it. Like break through the mold and just go for it. So I would hope
Yeah.
that anyone listening, like, it's just encouragement to one, get Mary's book, Underestimated, and also just to really think about that dream, think about that thing that like your story. I love what you say because the fear where the intersections line up, it is our story and our gifts. And so a lot of people
Yeah.
sometimes are like, I don't know, I don't have a story, but it's like just spend time and like think about it, write it out, or I mean, even ask
Yeah.
people if you don't know what your strengths are. Ask your closest friends, ask those you work with. It might surprise you the way others view your strengths because we are like for me and for instance like encouraging words or being positive it's just who I am, and so sometimes I tend to forget that like some people need it, and so that also will set
Yeah.
me back, and I'll like have think of something really like encouraging, and then I'm like, yeah, no one really needs to hear that right now, you know what I
That's
mean?
fear. Yeah.
But if we get past that fear, and whenever I do end up sharing an encouraging word, it's like you always get the people who are like, "Thank you. I needed that." And
Yeah.
it's just a reminder like I don't know what the reminder is. It's just that you what like not everybody is you, We're all unique and we
Yeah.
all have strengths to offer one another and not
Yes.
hide behind it.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So what this is bringing up for me is chapter 6, imposter syndrome is a sheet of thin
I love
ice.
it.
And what that talks about is, I quote the sketch guy from the New York Times. He has like a weekly article or whatever column, and he draws sketches and then writes inspiring things. And one of them, he was talking about imposter syndrome being a Venn diagram, and it was this idea of like we think that what we know. This was him, and then there was another graphic just to give fair credit. There was another woman whose name I'm blanking on right now, but she drew the graphic like this, where it's like we think that what the diagram looks like is a tiny circle that says what we know, and that tiny circle is entirely encapsulated in a much larger circle that says what everybody else knows, meaning we think everything we know everybody else already knows and then some. And the sketch guy talks about, we just can't imagine that what if it comes easy to us, it must come that easy to everybody. If we know this, everybody must know this. Like we just can't imagine we have that much to offer the world. And so it kind of reminds me, I joke in the book at one point, there's a Groucho Marx line that says, I would never want to join a club that would ever have someone like me as a member. And so it's like when it's our gifts, when it's our knowledge, when it's our insights, when it's our voice, when it's our breakthrough, we think it must be no big deal. I don't want to be a part of that club. Like that's my stuff. It can't be that good. But the reality is right now there is somebody aching for the gifts that you have been
Right.
given. I say in the book, another year goes by, the clock goes on ticking, and the world is worse for your absence. So really the great work of this book for me, you were talking about the friend who said they want to write a book several years ago. And then, 1 month ago, oh, I still need to write that book, but it's the same excuses. And I wrote a post once a long time ago that I said, believe me, we've all heard your excuses. Like the people who love you most have heard your excuses. Aren't you tired of saying them yet? And so the great work of this
That's
book
good.
is both that and then just showing how incredibly boring and predictable and like copy and paste repeat fear really is, where it's like if I can get you to be just so bored of the show that fear is putting on, like, oh, I've watched this show 12 seasons and the plot line never changes. If I can get you to just be so disgustingly bored with how fear shows up that you're like, honestly, you're just really not that scary anymore, you're just boring, and I'm tired of hearing myself repeat what you're saying, you know then I think
Right.
people can break free. We just got to get so tired of the excuses and fear winning, and then I think the only thing that's left is good work.
Oh, so true. I absolutely agree with you on that. And I think your book will be able to help others maybe tangibly begin to break the fear, because I think a lot of people too are stuck in the truly like, I just don't know where to begin. And it's almost like a
Yeah.
overwhelming, like, I don't know, And so I think your book will be a great guide to be able to help people
Yeah.
to at least get started in whatever is
I think
holding
it's
them
gonna
back,
do
whatever.
even a lot more than that, honestly. I think if they read this book start to finish, I think it's like I wrote it with an arc of transformation. This was
Great.
not intended
Love it.
as an intro. This is a deep dive.
So good.
It's not gonna feel hard or heavy. I mean, it might feel heavy at sometimes, but it's not gonna feel like dense or boring. You will not be bored in this
Right.
book. I promise you that. And so, it's a page turner. And the good news about that is that it keeps you going all the way through that arc. And so I think if people work this book, it's going to be deep transformation. Honestly, this is the goal for this book. Nothing short of generational transformation. Nothing short of
So
family
good.
trees looking different on the other side.
I think
Yeah.
that is absolutely fantastic. I mean, that is what we all need. Absolutely. Do you have any in the book? Are there any activations or like prompts, or do you have
Mhm.
something else that people can maybe work through, like a workbook or
Yeah, so a workbook is interesting. We are you're the only one who knows this except for the team. We are in the process of working on a journal that'll come out about a year later. So that'll be really fun when that comes out. I think there will probably also be like an online course I'll take people through, but
I
the
think that's
book
great.
itself, it is just such this beautiful mix of like my friend said it's sort of like my era's tour because it's like bringing all the pieces of Mary together. So like my humor, my pop culture references, my very deep lyrical poetry writing at points, science,
Very fun.
psychology, just all the things together. And so there are times in the book where it's like, here are 5 things for you to think through. Here are 6 ways we can reframe that. Here's the most important flip of that script. And every single chapter ends with what I call the shift, which is a surprisingly simple, small, but important commitment you keep to yourself that begins to shift you out of people pleasing, out of perfectionism, out of feeling like failure is fatal. And so it is for sure practical, but it's like deep transformation work first.
I love that. I'm just so excited. I can't wait. When does the book come out? And where can people get the
Yeah.
book?
Yeah, so it comes out April 29th. So as we're recording this, it's a week from today. You're going to have the book, Des, in like a couple days. I'm about to go to the post
Yay.
office with it, with these really fun boxes we're putting together. Think Secret Society meets Escape Room. It's very fun. But
Ooh.
for everybody who's listening, the book is out everywhere books are sold April 29th. Depending on when this airs, anytime between now and that date and like the rest of that launch week, if you order the book before the end of launch week, so that's the Friday, May 2nd, you will also get the audiobook. If you go to namethefear.com, we have the whole first chapter up there for you for free. You can read that, check it out, get a feel for my writing. And then if you go ahead and order, then we have it up there where you can claim pre-order bonuses. It's going to get you the first 3 chapters, then will be emailed right to you right away while you wait for the book to arrive. But when the audiobook is out, you're going to get the entire audiobook read by me. So it's kind of like getting 2 books for the price of one. One where you can
That's
underline and
great.
highlight, and one where I will whisper sweet nothings to you as we do this transformational work together.
That's awesome. I love that. And then where can people just connect with you on the daily? Because
Mhm.
I love all your posts and everything. So let them know where
Yeah.
they can find you on Instagram and
Mhm.
on your website.
Yeah, I'll tell you first that we have a really fun quiz called the Achiever Quiz. 5 different achiever types. The performer, always on their toes, needs to show other people how far they've come. They do it for themselves, but they also do it to show other people. The tightrope walker could care less who's clapping, but they need higher and higher death-defying feats to feel the same amount of good. The contortionist is the classic people pleaser. They contort because it is easier than to be criticized. Our masquerader does a tricky sleight of hand as they push other people into the spotlight so that nobody notices them slinking back into hidden corners. And our illusionist in the distance believes all the conditions to begin and they themselves must be perfect before they can even start. And so if you go to achieverquiz.com or marymarantz.com/quiz, Marantz is my last name. You can take the quiz, takes like 2 or 3 minutes. The questions are fun. The results go deep in true Mary fashion. So achieverquiz.com, and then come over to Instagram at @MaryMarantz, MaryMarantz. Tell me what your achiever type is. I want to know. I want to know what yours
I
is, Desiree.
love that.
Yeah.
I love the little quizzes.
Yeah.
I'll go take it
Me too.
and
Yeah.
and let you know what I end up as.
Hmm.
I'm guessing maybe I don't know, actually.
Yeah.
Might surprise
I
me.
Yeah, I could see the contortionist because you mentioned some things on the
I was
episode
gonna
about, sort of
say,
people pleasing. But we
yeah,
are
I
very
was gonna say
similar, so
that
you might be
one.
a performer, which is what I am. Yeah.
Interesting. I love it. I
Yeah.
can't wait. Well, thank you, Mary, for taking time to share more about the book and just to chat
Yeah.
with me. I just wish you all the best, and I look forward to connecting soon.
Yeah. Thank you
Thanks,
so
you
much for
guys.
having me on, and name the fear, everybody.